From the show being full of cliches in every single episode to the plot being just plain unrealistic at times, here's why FBI is actually the worst TV series ever made. Now I know what you're thinking, the show has racked up millions of views, and you're right, it has, but that doesn't mean it's a good show. The plot follows an elite team of FBI experts in New York City that investigates major cases, and in that sense, FBI operates like any other crime drama TV show. It has suspense, fear, and conflict. But even after 100 episodes, there seems to have been zero character development, and every plot since the pilot is basically the same. I mean, you have your classic terrorist bombing or mass shootings, just like in every other crime show. At one point, it's like everyone can guess how the episode will end. One fan seemed to have summarized the pattern of the show pretty well. He wrote about how something happens. They bring in the FBI and follow a bogus lead, go after the bad guy, call him from 50 feet away, cue a foot or case chase. Then add in someone trying to defuse a bomb, and then the episode ends with them talking about what just happened and sharing their feelings. And I mean, that sounds like every FBI episode ever for the past 2 seasons. And to add to that, the show came out with 2 separate spin-offs, that's right. 2 more high-stakes dramas, which seem to reuse the same old script and even character arcs in places. One fan even commented that trying to spot creative distinctions in a Dick Wolf show was a waste of time. Ouch! And if that wasn't enough, the show has been largely criticized for being too political. For one, in one of the episodes, when a white supremacist character is accused of a crime, the explanation for him holding such racist beliefs is that he has a bad mom. Seriously? This sort of explanation almost justifies the actions of the criminal and ignores the entire discourse on nationalism and the US versus them rhetoric that plays a huge part here. Instead, it portrays a simplistic story about a group of heroes that save lives against an imminent threat. And while the creator of the show, Dick Wolf, may argue that the show isn't politically oriented, the events of the show indicate that it does carry some political messages. Critics also argue that the show could deal with other cases beyond simply violent crimes that perpetuate an idea of constant threat and a need for the FBI to protect people. The show has also been accused of catering to the politics of the privileged class and not addressing other marginalized groups or the systematic issues that exist within. If that weren't enough, the over-the-top acting and unrealistic scenarios are getting too much for fans of the show. I mean, telling classified information to a teenager or letting them defuse a bomb. Come on! And don't even get me started on the way the agents are always standing so close to detonations. If that were real life, many of them would have suffered severe brain traumatic injuries or worse. And that's not me saying it. That's coming from an actual federal agent who watches the show. Or how about when there were 3 major explosions in the span of 3 minutes and everybody survived? And look, I mean, I get that TV shows take artistic liberties, but there has to be a limit, doesn't there? I mean, how does the FBI have the authority to stop an entire section of a subway in NYC? Is that even realistically possible? And before I forget, what about when, in one of the episodes, Special Agent Maggie Bell disarms a bomb by just cutting a couple of wires and using handy multi-use tools? That scene was laughable at best and a low point for the series at worst. And that's coming from Jerry Williams, an FBI agent herself. But wait, there's more where that came from. Jerry Williams closely watches the show and she has more to say. How does the bomb tech not evacuate the hospital before handling the explosive device? What part of her FBI training didn't cover clearing the area and putting on protective gear? I mean, come on, that's bomb disposal 101. And one can argue it's just a show, but the superhero-like attitude the bomb tech has while handling the bomb completely ruins the essence of the show for me. With FBI bending rules left and right and agents solving complex cases in a matter of hours, it's hard to follow through with a story when there's such an obvious flaw staring you in the face. The show wasn't heavily criticized from the start, though. At the beginning, many left glowing reviews for the TV series. But it was as the seasons progressed and the viewers noted repetitive storylines that prompted many to give up mid-season. Just the ratings on IMDb make for a pretty grim read, one fan wrote. Bad directing, bad writing, no flow to the storyline at all. Fans also noted that there was absolutely no cast dynamic and little to no character development, and they're not wrong. The audience needs a reason to root for the characters or want to follow along with the story. But when characters repeatedly make questionable choices or deliver dialogues that fall flat, there's really nothing more that can be done. In one review, the New York Post wrote that FBI could only be considered an hour of TV comfort food, nothing more. Another fan wrote, "After 4 seasons, we are giving up on this show soon. No season 5 needed." That doesn't sound like good news. But even if we keep major flaws of the show aside, viewers also have other complaints like what's up with the soundtrack? And why does the guy playing Jubal Valentine always seem to be shouting? And more than that, the show seems to be full of stereotypes that are typical of every other cop show. It's normal to follow a formula, but with its cliched characters and predictable storylines, FBI often sounds like a show that's ticking off a checklist of cop TV show tropes. What's missing is the fresh perspective that FBI could have added to an already popular genre of television. I mean, viewers should have a solid reason why they should watch just another cop TV show, am I right? We all know FBI is a show that caters to an older audience. I mean, this isn't the type of show a younger audience would enjoy. But that doesn't mean that FBI can get away with reusing plots from other shows or compromise on quality. The audience shouldn't leave thinking it's just like any other show, because what's the use of a new cop series if it's not going to be any different than the 100 other competitors in the same genre out there? Then there's the problem with its character development. With one-dimensional characters that lack depth and complexity, how is the audience supposed to connect with them on an emotional level, with people doing stuff that's out of character, only to further the plot? There's no real reason for the audience to get invested in the characters. And the static dialogue and setup doesn't make things any easier. Sometimes it feels like the characters don't even know each other in the show. FBI can't keep reusing the same old overused archetypes with no real growth or development, and its recent ratings are proof of that fact. What all of these factors point to is a case of lazy writing. Critics have also argued that it feels like writers of the show are using a template to write, which explains the disconnect between each episode and also leads to a distinct lack of character arcs and an overarching narrative. And seriously, have you ever cringed at some dialogues on this show? Because I definitely have. I mean, seriously, who talks like that in real life? The conversations are so unrealistic and forced that they disconnect the audience from the characters. You want a real connection, right? Well, good luck finding it here. And that's not all. The show is facing production delays because of the writers' strike, and so Season 5 would not be coming to CBS this year. If the strike lasts longer, it could lead to delayed or shortened seasons, changing of storylines, or even cancellation of the show itself. Who knows? Whatever happens, that doesn't sound like good news for FBI. But maybe it's for the best. I mean, given how the quality of the show keeps dropping every episode, maybe it's best to let the show end now, before it gets any worse. So there you have it, from the plot being just plain unrealistic at times to the show being full of cliches in every single episode. These were just a few reasons why FBI is the worst TV series ever made.